If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
For The World Today, this is James O'Neill. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a September 10th phone call with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi following their July meeting in Malaysia. Rubio stressed constructive dialogue on bilateral, global, and regional issues, while Wang criticized U.S. negative actions and warned against interference in China's core interests, including Taiwan. Tensions rise amid U.S. congressional visits to Taipei and ongoing arms sales. Washington recently imposed visa restrictions on Central Americans tied to Beijing and passed the Stop Chinese Fentanyl Act. Concurrently, the Justice Department indicted Chinese nationals for fentanyl-related activities, while Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reaffirmed U.S. Indo-Pacific commitments. European conservatives honored Charlie Kirk as a martyr for free speech after his assassination in Utah. Nigel Farage, who helped launch Turning Point UK, called it a dark day for democracy and praised Kirk's impact on young people. Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Kirk was killed for expressing common-sense views, not extremism. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, and leaders from France's National Rally and Germany's AfD also condemned the murder, blaming leftist rhetoric for fueling violence. Many stress the political debate must remain free from intimidation and deadly attacks. The FBI's Salt Lake City office released photos of a person of interest in Charlie Kirk's assassination and appealed for public assistance. Utah DPS Commissioner Bo Mason said Thursday the shooter appears to be of college age, adding that authorities reviewed extensive footage overnight. FBI Special Agent Robert Bowles confirmed recovery of a bolt-action rifle in a wooded area believed to be the murder weapon. According to the Wall Street Journal, ammunition found near the rifle carried engraved transgender messages. Officials continue to investigate while urging vigilance as national attention intensifies following the fatal shooting of the 31-year-old conservative activist. Ukrainian social media users celebrated the assassination of U.S. conservative Charlie Kirk, who was fatally shot in Utah. While mainstream Ukrainian outlets reported neutrality, many online posts mocked his death, with comments such as epic, super shot, and rest in pieces. Some posts were later deleted by Union, a leading Ukrainian outlet. Kirk was a fierce critic of President Zelensky, whom he called an international welfare queen, and condemned U.S. aid to Ukraine. Critics said his rejection of peace deals fueled the conflict. His killing sparked both outrage and grim approval online. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer dismissed UK Ambassador to the US Peter Mandelson on Thursday after newly published emails revealed his close ties to convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Foreign Office Minister Stephen Doughty confirmed Mandelson's removal, citing evidence that his relationship with Epstein was deeper than previously disclosed. The email showed Mandelson urging Epstein to fight for early release in 2008 and calling him "my best pal." Lawmakers across parties demanded his removal. James Roscoe, deputy head of mission in Washington, will serve as interim ambassador. The second family is set to fly to Salt Lake City on September 11th to visit Charlie Kirk's family and close friends after his assassination at Utah Valley University. Kirk's casket will be flown back to Phoenix, Arizona aboard Air Force Two with relatives and companions. Matt Dode was fired from MSNBC after his comments following the assassination of conservative speaker Charlie Kirk.
Especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
This has been James O'Neill for The World Today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And we're back again. It's a Monday morning in Australia. It's a Sunday evening, just gone 7 o'clock in New York. In fact, it's just 7:05 in New York in the evening. And elsewhere in the world, it's either late afternoon, middle of the night, or whatever, or very early in the morning. But hello and thank you. Big week too, looking at Charlie Kirk, the disgraceful assassination of Charlie Kirk and the absolutely vile comments that followed I mean, I'm ashamed of these people. I cannot even read some of them. I'm going to play a clip in a second that will just show you the lack of respect, first of all, for the dead, which I was always taught. No matter how much you hate somebody, never celebrate the death. The FBI and state agencies have launched investigations into multiple leftist groups in Utah for possible advanced knowledge of the Charlie Kirk assassination. That's from Axios. Now, they're also probing whether or not these groups provided material that supported all the vile comments and stuff after the killing, and whether it was actually a part of the incentive to do the killing. At least one group deactivated their social media pages soon after the shot was taken. I've got a couple of questions to ask our next guest because I'm hearing all sorts of reports, and unless this guy was a magician, I'm wondering how it entered one part of his body and come out the other part. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, we'll find out shortly. Cam, can you just play, because this is a footage of a guy called Ryder Correll, and he was caught vandalising the Charlie Kirk Memorial, and then one of the onlookers grabbed him and threw him to the ground, and then he was arrested by the police. Cam, if you could play footage, please. Same T-shirt, by the way, that the alleged shooter was wearing too. So the same T-shirt and the same insane reasoning for doing what he's doing. And the amount of hatred is just enormous, and ashamed of it too. But I want to talk about the actual killing. Part of it I don't understand. Now, Ken Silva has been an investigative reporter for more than a decade, working in places such as the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, and the US. He writes regularly for Headline USA and occasionally contributes to the Libertarian Institute. His reporting interests focus on topics such as FBI investigations and corruption, clandestine government activities, and extremist groups. And you can follow him, by the way, at X at JD_cashlist. Ken, thanks for joining us. Can you just tell me, I'm just a bit curious about the shot. Now, the shooter was in front of him. The shot entered, apparently, according to all reports, entered his right-hand side and came out of his left-hand side of the neck. Now, if you're in front, have they created bullets that do a right-hand turn?
This is the same caliber that the sniper who shot the would-be Trump assassin Thomas Crooks fired, and that went into his neck, out of the neck, back into the shoulder, and then it fragmented into two re-exit wounds. So it's very, surprising that we haven't recovered the bullet, according to online reports, and there's still a lot of questions to be answered. You'd think the wound would be a lot better or a lot bigger when you compare it to the Thomas Crooks shot.
As an investigative reporter, it actually doesn't add up. It just seems to, we would call it BS, and tends to be a lot of BS here at the moment. What do you think happened?
Well, we've got a lot of unanswered questions. The official story is that the suspect, Tyler Robinson, arrived on campus at around 8 a.m. in his Dodge Charger. And from there, he's unaccounted for nearly 4 hours until 11:52. He's seen on a TMZ camera walking through a neighborhood. He goes through a campus parking garage, out another door, up the building that he used as a perch. Around this time, around noon, Charlie Kirk begins throwing hats into the crowd. About 9 minutes later, Kirk begins speaking. He takes a question from someone who's ironically or coincidentally asking about gun violence and trans shooters. And from the rooftop, about 8 seconds later, Robinson said to have fired the shot. He escapes, which is one of the most mysterious parts of the story, is that he remained at large for the next 33 hours. They apprehended one guy named George Zinn, who was making a scene. He was rumored to be the shooter, but that turned out not to be the case. Later that day, they apprehended another person of interest named Zachariah Qureshi, and the FBI director actually announced on Twitter that they had a subject in custody, but he had later had to reverse himself and say, no, we had to release him. And then it wasn't until that they finally released images and a video of supposedly Robinson, we just still don't know for sure, escaping. Supposedly his family turns him in. We've got messages on Discord where his friends are joking, hey, Tyler, is that the pictures kind of look like you? Is that you? And he jokes back, well, no, I'm really Charlie Kirk faking my own death so I could escape to Kansas. And apparently the family's cooperating with authorities, but Tyler Robinson is not. He's exercising his constitutional rights. They've put him on suicide watch, which, followers of the Jeffrey Epstein case, that might raise their antennas. So he's in solitary confinement. And that's where we are at this point.
The other day I was talking to an ex-CIA operative who does some stuff for us, and it was a guy called Joachim Hagopian. He said that, yes, the FBI will get somebody, but it most likely won't be the right person. I don't understand. It is impossible to be 200 yards away in front of the suspect and to hit the person in the left-hand side of the neck, the back of the neck, and come out of the other side. And when we saw the footage, we thought first of all it had been on the right-hand side, left-hand side. We thought it was on the left-hand side because of the actual the discharge of blood. But it was actually from the other side, right to left. I can't understand, and it doesn't make any sense, and it would suggest that this guy is not the shooter, because two questions. Bullets do not do immediate right-hand turns. Secondly, how did he get his bolt-action weapon up to that position? Did he walk around with a prosthetic and he had a gun instead of the leg? It does not make any sense. And what I smell is another cover up, or they know more than they're telling us. It doesn't make any sense. And you mentioned it was the same caliber as the bullet that that tried to assassinate President Trump. Again, all this is just, there used to be a TV series and the guy says, I don't believe in coincidences. What's your thoughts?
Well, as far as the going into one side of the neck and out the other, I've seen some videos about that, but I guess, to play devil's advocate, we are watching a, two-dimensional screen representing a three-dimensional reality. There's a lot of, AI and manipulation. So I would rather not comment on that until I've seen something more firm. But to your point about not seeing the rifle, yeah, that's one of the more mysterious things. This is a 46-inch long rifle that he said to have put apart in his pants. That's why he's kind of seen walking with a limp. But then when you see him escaping from the rooftop, you don't really see a rifle. Then later it appears in the bushes. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and there's a lot of surveillance footage that should have captured this incident, and they need to release it all if they want to reinstill any kind of public trust in these institutions. Last thing I'll say is that the campus police only had 6 police officers devoted to security. I think Charlie Kirk had a 5-man team. So this is a very under-secured event for that kind of outdoor venue. It was almost kind of like the Butler shooting, almost like they were planning to fail.
But surely, in fact, there was footage of someone lying on top of the building in what looked like a shooter or a sniper stance, flat on the ground, weapon up, pointing towards the stage. But again, I have to say, It does not make, he didn't turn his head sideways, he didn't turn like that. It went in the, his right-hand side, came out the left-hand side. Bullets do not take a right-hand turn. It's as simple as that. And I used to be a very good shot when I was with the military, even though I was only with the reserve at that stage. They do not do right-hand turns. Just tell me this, is not enough information at the moment creating the confusion, because it would look like that the FBI, we have the suspect, we don't have the suspect, we have a suspect. How did he get the weapon in? His grandmother or close relatives say he really has no experience in shooting. He had if it was him, he had a shot 200 yards away. He'd be employed by the military in 5 seconds for his shooting prowess and his natural ability, it would seem. It doesn't make any sense. So information we're getting seems to be a bit like some of the bullets, fragmented all over the place. We need to actually understand what had happened, stop the scuttlebutt, stop the conspiracy theories, and lay it out on the line. What I'm seeing, though, is the FBI is truly, again, incompetent in releasing the information. It releases a bit of this and a bit of that, and what you have is you have exactly what a, inverted commas, want for another word, a deep state. What they would love to have is this confusion at the moment. And then you have, to make things worse, you have the celebration of Charlie Kirk's death. Now, I didn't follow Charlie Kirk. I knew who he was. Didn't mean much to me. But it doesn't mean that you go out and say, oh, well, who cares? It didn't mean much to me. He meant a lot to a lot of people. So surely, back to my original question, surely the police and the FBI should be releasing factual, consistent information, and not this this information, firewood that's feeding these conspiracy theories or fires.
Yeah, not only do we have fragmented information, but we have contradictory information. I mean, if you look at the arrest warrant, they say that this Tyler Robinson kid was supposedly, again, as I referenced, talking to his friends on this gaming chat room called Discord, joking about, Tyler, is that you? Well, Discord came out and said that no, these messages were not occurring on our platform. We don't condone this. And they deleted his account. But then the New York Times reported last night that they actually have looked at these messages and that they are true. So either the government's lying or Discord's lying. And Discord does have a long history of, I guess, these extremist chat rooms where mentally ill teenagers and young men kind of congregate and talk about school shootings and glorify these things, normalize them. And I think their brains become warped and they carry out these plans. The dirty little secret that the FBI and the government doesn't want you to know is they monitor these chat rooms heavily. They have been for years. One of the most notorious examples of this is the 2022 Buffalo Top shooting, where a white supremacist named Peyton Gendron went to a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, and killed, I think, 10 black people. And the real scandal came out. The Buffalo News reported it a couple of months later that he had put out a live stream on his Discord chat room. And one of the people that linked into the live stream was a so-called retired federal agent. And there was a report saying, oh, the FBI is going to talk to this retired federal agent, see what he was doing, watching a live shooting and not warning authorities. And of course, we never heard about it again. Fast forward maybe 2 more years, and we had a young 20-year-old National Air Guardsman named Jack Teixeira. He leaked top secret documents onto Discord about the Ukraine war. And after that, the Biden administration announced that they were partnering with Discord and they're going to have the intelligence agencies closely monitor these chat rooms to make sure it never happens again. So I got to imagine that Tyler Robinson was being monitored if he was talking about any kind of violent rhetoric.
Yeah, it doesn't actually make any sense, does it? There's a lot more at play here. And maybe that's one reason why the FBI is not releasing all the information. But as you said, we have misinformation. We have all sorts of things floating around there. unless it's a tactic by the FBI or by others, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, what do you think the end game is? I mean, they're suggesting others are involved. I do not believe at this stage that he is the shooter. Bullets do not do right-hand turns. Simple as that. And secondly, if he is such a novice at shooting, to hit somebody in the neck 200 yards away, I mean, truly, that is, he would have been in the Olympics if he was that good.
It would have been a pretty good shot, yeah. And another thing, if you look at the rifle, the scope is kind of hanging off the end of the stock, which kind of makes like if the scope would have flown back in his eye. Like the scope wasn't even installed properly, according to the photo that I've seen. So that's just another unresolved mystery. And to your point about not knowing much about Charlie Kirk, I mean, this guy, he's being called a fascist on the left, but he was not, he's kind of a moderate Republican. To me, he wasn't a very interesting or controversial character. Of course, his rhetoric was kind of inflammatory. He goes on college campuses and argues with, students who don't know the difference between a boy or a girl. But I mean, this stuff is kind of bland. Like it's what Ben Shapiro was doing 10 years ago. And when you compare him to more controversial figures like, a Nick Fuentes, for example, he's relatively moderate. So when you call a fascist, like these people have no idea what they're talking about. And if it really was some sort of left-wing plot, they clearly didn't consider the second order effects of what this has brought, because now, a lot of people are more sympathetic to the government. They're going to be able to crack down on the campuses, crack down on dissent, crack down on the left wing. So if this really was like an organic plot, which I know you're raising doubts and I have my own doubts, they didn't think it through. This is not going to help their cause.
Unless from the other side of things, because if you look at all the nefarious activities from intel orgs, whether they're domestic or international, over the last few years, if you wanted to achieve something, what you do is you create a scene or a scenario that supports what you want to do. So if you want to create, for example, in Australia, we have the E-Safety Act, which is coming in December, which will basically, even though it's to protect the children, it means that adults will have a lot more trouble accessing channels like our own. So what you do is you highlight a few, things that have happened to children. Look after these people, or you look at activities from groups that they will associate. For example, we had protests and they associated the neo-Nazis with that. And there's questions on that too, whether they're just planted. But it creates the narrative that people will support. You shut down the evil internet without thinking about it and going to protect everybody. Well, here we have also something else, that we have Charlie Kirk shot and killed. He becomes a martyr. We need to crack down on these terrible organisations because they're really bad people. And it throws the focus onto that sort of activity, and then they achieve what they want. Because none of this makes any sense. And if this guy was out to make a point, show the world that he got rid of evil, for a guy that has done all that and beating his chest and all that sort of stuff, he's very quiet. If you look at terrorists, if something happens, they claim responsibility and beat their chest because they got rid of an evil Allah hater or someone like that. So this guy here, he supposedly shot Charlie Kirk, and he's saying nothing. Normally you say something, that I did what God wanted me to do, that sort of stuff. So it doesn't make any sense, does it, Ken?
There are reports that supposedly he had a roommate who was transgender, and that was actually his boyfriend, and the transgender boyfriend was transitioning to a girl, and he killed Charlie Kirk, for his boyfriend/girlfriend. This to me is totally unconfirmed. I think it's totally speculative, and I agree with your point. I mean, remember, this is September 10th, the day before the anniversary of 9/11, and look what happened there. We had a heinous attack, but you had the backlash. You had 9/11. You had 20 years of war where our Americans were slaughtered, hundreds of thousands of Middle Easterns were slaughtered, It kind of bankrupted our country. It led to a lot of this toxic culture that we're living in now. So again, people need to consider these second order effects before they call for some sort of government crackdown or for mass surveillance of the internet or in Discord chat rooms. I wish what people would think before they call for the government to save the day, but it's looking like just society never learns its lesson.
Just as we are running out of time, we've got a couple more minutes left. The Irina killing, that was a terrible thing. She was stabbed, and they were saying that, and Charlie Kirk was saying that, why haven't people and the media focused on her killing? And truly, there are so many killings at the moment in the States. This is just one of another. That's my reasoning behind it. I think it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. And he said that, or he intimated that if she was black, would have been a terrible outcry. I don't know about that either, because many blacks are killed in for example, in Chicago. But the fact that someone was sitting in public transport, and that was just sitting there minding her business, and within a minute she was dead, says a lot about the US at the moment. The hatred that is out towards Charlie Kirk now that he's dead, and everybody, not everybody, but a great number of people are saying terrible things. The killing of this poor woman who escaped a war zone and was getting on with her life. She was killed. For people to say if she was black, there would have been an outcry, I do not believe that at all. I think so many killings are happening throughout the US. It's just one of another. The reason why Charlie Kirk is creating such a storm is because he is a very public figure. So what is wrong with the US at the moment? I mean, the US has always had shootings. That's what you get when you have guns. Doesn't mean the gun's bad. It means the people are bad. You know, like you have car accidents. You have a lot of car accidents. Doesn't mean the car's bad. It means the person driving it shouldn't be driving. So what's wrong with the US at the moment? But what is wrong?
That's a funny question. I'm an American. I love my country, but I will admit that it is an open air insane asylum. You're actually talking to the reporter that obtained and published that footage of the horrible train stabbing, and it occurred on August 22nd. And you're exactly right. I live in the Charlotte area. I've covered this story from day one, and it really didn't get any attention until the footage was actually released. And then when people see how visceral it is, that's when it caused kind of a storm on Twitter. But yeah, the mainstream media hasn't covered it. I think they don't like to touch these kind of racial issues unless the shoe's under the foot. I kind of disagree. I think if it was a white guy stabbing a black girl like that, it would have been a George Floyd's type situation where you had cities burning down. But to answer your question, this guy, DeCarlos Brown, a multiple-time convict, he was a diagnosed schizophrenic. He should have been in a mental hospital. And you could trace this back to the Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan era, where they defunded the psych wards. And now, you know, these people really that they should be probably interned but in psych wards, but now they're on the streets. So that's kind of a straightforward answer to your question, is that we need more investment in mental health. I think at the time people were worried about like, oh, these psych wards are like torturing people, and that's a real problem, I'm not going to lie. But if you just let them on the streets, we have random poor little girls getting stabbed in horrific fashion. So there are no solutions, as Thomas Sowell said. There's only trade-offs.
Yeah, you did right. What do you think? Well, just back to Charlie for a brief moment before we wind this up. What do you think the outcome will be with Charlie Kirk?
Well, right now, Tyler Robinson, the suspect, is in solitary confinement. They said he's on a special watch for possible suicide risk. He's in a Velcro padded vest. Suicide watch is not fun for the inmate. They check on you every 15 minutes, which means you can't sleep. It basically scrambles your brain. He's not cooperating. He's pleading the fifth, but it really looks like they're torturing him right now. So I expect him to be the sacrificial lamb. Maybe they'll arrest a couple of his friends. But to your question of like a wider conspiracy, is this some sort of, did the government have foreknowledge? Was it even an inside job? I don't expect that we'll ever get to the bottom of this.
No, I think it's a yet another chapter in the big book of conspiracy theories, just like 9/11 was a conspiracy theory. And a lot of things just do not make any sense. But it's amazing the power of legacy media. They can plant a thing in your mind that seems like, yep, that's about right. Yes, that makes sense. And no matter what you say after, no matter what you say, it's not going to move them from that line of thinking. Legacy media, just quickly, how have they acted? How have the media performed so far with the Charlie Kirk murder?
Well, they're not really pressing the government on the contradictions, and that's what they should be doing. The New York Times has released probably the best information. They've got kind of like a graphic map of the suspect's supposed movements. So I've been using the New York Times as a reference just to get what is the official story, what is the information they're being released. As far as the long-term effect, though, the alternative media isn't much better, I'm afraid to say. I mean, I'm seeing like screenshots of supposed, he was previewing his attack before this, and like the veracity of these screenshots are really unclear. We're getting a lot of rumors that, oh, Charlie Kirk, this is all fake. You could see he had something in his shirt that squirted fake blood. I've got to imagine these are either total grifters who want the attention. Maybe they're foreign state actors. I know Russia, China, maybe people sitting in Tel Aviv. All these people have an interest in sowing discord in the United States and making sure we can't get along with each other, making sure we can't find out the truth. So, as bad as the legacy media is, the alternative media isn't much better, I'm afraid to say.
No, and you're totally right too. Isn't it funny, the truth tellers? I mean, a lot of the truth tellers are just liars. It's simple as that. And they pretend to be, we're going to save humanity. We're going to protect humanity with our truth. And what they're doing is just boosting their own egos. And it's a disgrace. We had a saying here that if somebody, when we had TNT, if they left us for for whatever reason, if it was a bad reason, we'd always say the ego outweighed the talent. And it was true. It's true. People want to be stars. They want to save the world. Joan of Arc. Yeah. Ken Silva, thank you very much for your time at JD_cashless on X. Do you have a website, Ken?
Yeah, that's headlineusa.com. And like I said, we were the website, the media outlet that obtained and published the full 18-minute video of that horrific train stabbing. And we've got a number of records requests about this Charlie Kirk murder. We're trying to get the communications between the college and Charlie Kirk's security to see what their planning was like. So we're going to be having a lot more information coming forth about this. And thanks for having me. I'm sorry about my initial microphone issues.
That's great. And if you look at it right now, we've got this beautiful sunset and your light is disappearing slowly. So this is our new way of blocking your face, you see. We just have black.
I'm trying to increase the brightness of my screen as it goes on. But yeah, I'm sorry about that too.
No, but it's fantastic. I appreciate it. And we must do more of it, hopefully with some light. This is The World Today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
Charlie Kirk had an effect on millions and millions of people worldwide. And I think Charlie is now looking down upon the world thinking, wow, I had an effect on a great chunk of the planet. He was, from all accounts, a very good man. And from all accounts, looking into the crystal ball, he most likely would have at least ran for the presidency of the US, and looking at his popularity, that appreciated his sincerity and his push for free speech and equality, I think he would have been president. There was a vigil in Long Island. It was a very emotional vigil. We have it was called the Candlelight Vigil for Charlie Kirk, and it was Light Up the Sky. That was the name of it. Cam, could you play the clip, please, for Charlie Vigil.
We want Charlie! I'm having goose. We want Charlie! I'm having goose.
Thousands turned up for that one, and right around the world, people have been moved. It shows you that right at the end, even though Charlie is gone, right does win, good does win, because it has now solidified a great deal of the world. Even though there are some very ugly things, we'd played a clip before, I won't do it now, but it showed you a guy called Ryder Corral, who just desecrated all these beautiful flowers and stuff in memory of Charlie Kirk. Anyway, so my guest is Josh Bernstein, and Josh, his nephew grew up with Charlie Kirk. Josh is going to the, I think, funeral of Charlie Kirk, and this time we're going to talk about a lot more on Charlie Kirk and the thoughts about the man and his work and his influence around the world. Josh, thanks for joining us. Tell us what Charlie Kirk meant to you.
Well, it's great to be back on the program with you. Hopefully I'm not muted this time. You can hear me good, right?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So I met Charlie at least one time in person, and I've seen him multiple times throughout the years at Turning Point events and things of that nature. As a matter of fact, I never would have had my book, Preserving Liberty, published if it wasn't for meeting the right people and connecting with the right publishers at a Turning Point event. So I'll always be grateful and thankful for him. He was an incredible human being. He was a gifted spirit. He was articulate. He was smart. He was fast on his feet, and he loved to engage. You know, he loved to engage and talk and have political discourse with people that didn't agree with him. My nephew actually recruited him from a rival high school in the state of Illinois, and he did such a wonderful job on the Mark Kirk political campaign, no relation to Charlie, that my nephew reached out to him, and they had lunch together at a Red Robin. And at the time, he was recruiting Charlie to come to work on the Bob Dole campaign. And Charlie was more interested in talking about this idea that he had for Turning Point. Didn't have its name yet. It was in its infantile stages, if you will. And so they struck up a conversation, a friendship that lasted a couple of years. They did work together on the Bob Dole campaign. And he wanted my nephew to join Turning Point, but my nephew instead went a different direction and went off to college. So that's really what I know. That's the relationship. I never got an opportunity, sadly, to interview Charlie and or be on his show. But of course, I know a lot of the people in his inner circle. And this is just devastating. It truly is. It's devastating. But from this, I think what's going to happen is you are going to see a groundswell of support, a conservative revolution in the United States of America, of the likes of which has never even been close to accomplishing as big as it will be in America, and perhaps even around the world. We see so many countries around the world, from London to South Korea to many other countries, that are giving these vigils and doing rallies in support of him. But he was a clean-cut kid. He was, a God-fearing soul, and he didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't do anything bad. He really lived his life. He was an excellent, excellent father, a tremendous husband to his beautiful wife. And it's just so sad. I mean, he was 31 years old. He packed a lot of life into those 31 years, and he's certainly going to be missed for a very, very long time.
Here's a thought. The US has been quite fragmented. You've got left and right and right and right and left, and in the middle, people all fighting with each other over various things, whether it's wars, crime, poverty, bad government, etc. Do you think this is a turning point for America?
I think it's a turning point for the youth of America in particular. I think, and all you have to do is look at the numbers. I mean, 2 days after his horrendous death, they went from 9,000 total chapters on 850 campuses and 250,000 volunteers with 500 full time employees to now 32,000 chapter requests. That is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.4 million more active conservative young leaders to bring this next generation back to law and order and bring it back to its founding and its documents and its constitution. And so I think, and I said this before, the good Lord may have taken Saint Charlie, let's call him what he is. He needs to be sainted with all he's accomplished in his life. I think he was taken at a moment because I think a lot of American MAGA, America First supporters, conservatives, a lot of them are still suffering from the Trump victory hangover, and they have lost focus on these midterms. They have lost focus on what it means to make sure that we continue to grow our numbers and defeat left wing ideology. And so perhaps they took Charlie and God took Charlie for that reason to wake up and start a counter revolution of conservatism in the youth in particular, all around the United States of America and the world. And so, again, it's a sad and horrible thing that happened to him. A lot of what this reminds me of, and maybe I'm dating myself here, but have you ever seen the movie with Al Pacino called Dog Day Afternoon?
Mm.
Dog Day Afternoon is basically a story about, and this is in the 1970s, so this was pretty radical for the time. But basically, Al Pacino plays a bank robber who decides to rob a bank for a sex change operation for his lover. Well, I can see a similarity in the effect that this Tyler Robinson seemed to be, again, in his youth, a pretty good Christian kid. He was involved with the Boy Scouts. He went hunting. That's where the aim came from. He went hunting with his father a lot in Montana and Idaho and elsewhere. And so he was sadly a good shot. But he then veered off in the last couple of years, and he had this secret life of this lover who was transgender, this Lance Twiggs. And I have no doubt that this quote unquote person, this person that wants to transition, was probably indoctrinating him and pushing him and basically saying, do this for me. You know, he's evil. He hates people like me. We can be together, do this. And I think he was radicalized, not just from his quote unquote lover, but this entire online secret society of this trans ideology, violent, criminals out there. And from Discord to Steam, I think it was, and many others. I think if there was a subpoena to Discord and Steam of everybody involved in these chat groups, you would find that this was planned, premeditated, strategized, and organized months in advance. I mean, look at some of the clues. Somebody had a song on SoundCloud that was literally titled Charlie Kirk Dead at 31. That's not a coincidence. You had the people on X saying, I hope he gets evaporated, literally, and then just wait to see what happens tomorrow. There were so many of these types of clues out there in social media world. But here's the other thing I'm going to say. Where was the security? Honestly, we just had the president of the United States have an attempt on him twice, including one on a raised rooftop position. Why wasn't there drones flying overhead before, after, and during these rallies? Why wasn't Charlie behind bulletproof glass? I mean, I don't understand the lax security measures, and that is something that needs to be tightened up. And I hope and pray that that happens for all of these people that are going to continue on in Charlie's legacy on these campus tours.
What about his changing views on Israel? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think he's always been a supporter of Israel. I think as an evangelical Christian, it kind of goes with the territory. I've always been a strong supporter of evangelical Christians. The majority of my audience are evangelical Christians and good, faithful people. Me, myself, of course, I'm Jewish and proud to be, but I'm a big supporter of Israel. But I also understand that we are a founding of a Christian nation. A Judeo-Christian nation is the United States founding principles and values. And if we get away from that, then we're going to have 3,000 years of darkness. And I think Charlie understood that. He saw the youth of today not going to churches, not interested in procreation, not interested in getting married. I mean, almost in a way, some of the youth of the Gen Z generations, especially due to the lockdowns and what that did psychologically and how it damaged them so much. I think there's a similarity to China with the lie down thing. I mean, granted, we're not telling all these people to do that. They just decided that they didn't feel as though their society was worth living, and so they were checking out of society. And that happened, of course, in China and still continues to this day. So I think this Gen Z generation is locked in their rooms. They don't know what fresh air is. They don't go out. They don't play until the street lights come on. And they play these violent video games, and they're in these, virtual realities that really are not reality at all. And I think they get radicalized, of course, by their teachers, their school administrators, Hollywood. I mean, there's so many people that are clearly guilty here, not to mention the politicians and the media that have called Charlie Kirk a fascist, a racist, a Nazi. These people need to be charged with U.S. Code 18373, which is incitement to violence. This is not a free speech issue anymore. Somebody died because of your rhetoric. You incited people to violence. That is a felony. And I'll tell you right now, the Department of Justice and the FBI in the United States of America, they ought to create a social media task force and go through all these different videos and all these different comments and start charging all these politicians and media figures with incitement to violence.
You then have a problem, though, because what is their interpretation of incitement of violence or whatever, if you disagree with government, and you have to look at the UK and Australia for that matter, and even New Zealand, that if you disagree with government, then you can be charged with incitement of violence. And that is just an interpretation that they've taken about.
Right. I think you have to be strict to the law, which says that if you incite violence, if you tell people to harm someone or kill someone or say that they are a threat to society and they need to be dealt with, then that's incitement to violence. If you say you don't like someone or you don't like Charlie or whatever, that's fine. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actual definition incitement to violence. And there's quite a few of them out there. One of them comes to mind immediately from the Lincoln Project, who said we're going to have to, quote, put a bullet in Donald Trump's head. I'm sorry, that's incitement to violence.
Who was that?
Rick Wilson, I believe, was his name.
What a piece of shit he is.
Yeah, you could certainly use those words. Absolutely.
It's just terrible. Your thoughts on the reporting? The reporting has been, I have to say, appalling. Here's one thing, I spoke to Ken Silva about it before you. It doesn't make sense. Shooter was in front, 200 yards away. Don't care if he goes out hunting. That's a very good shot. Enters his right-hand side of his neck, comes out the left-hand side. Can you tell me, in your experience, and maybe they do make bullets that turn at right angles?
Well, look, I think first and foremost, 200 yards away with a Mauser 30-06 hunting rifle with a scope on it. I have talked to many people in law enforcement, and they say anyone that has any type of experience in shooting those types of gun, they can hit someone from 300-400 feet away. So 200 feet is really not that far. Now, I will say this. There are some videos floating around, and it looks as though that some of the people that are standing right next to him on each side of him might be giving some type of signal to the shooter. As a matter of fact, one of them pulls their hat down, pulls their ear, and the other one brushes their arm a little bit. And then the next thing you know, the questions come in, and boom, he gets completely just annihilated. And it's just a horrific video. It's so horrible. My wife was screaming and crying when she saw it. And, I saw it and I said, this doesn't look good. It reminded me of Ashley Babbitt.
The reporting has been, I have to say, from both sides, has been pretty ordinary, hasn't it?
I think the prostitutes in the media, that's what I call them, because that's what they are, don't want to foreshadow the fact that there was a transgendered person involved in this, whether it be the lover or the ideology. Obviously, the guns were clearly marked with that type of ideology and markings and things of that nature. But they're also trying to say that because this young kid who came from a good Mormon Christian, family, good upbringing, wealth, he, wasn't out on the streets or anything like that. His father was a former law enforcement officer. His mother helped out, worked for the state of Utah, helping disabled children. I mean, these were good people. The whole family was pretty conservative. But again, the kid got radicalized in the last couple of years. And so they're trying to say that this was somehow a MAGA conservative that was going after Charlie Kirk. That is the farthest thing from the truth. And the fact that they even report things like that is why I call them and why they live up to their nickname of prostitutes.
I love it. But I won't use it because I respect copyright.
You can use it. It's not my copyright. I wish it was, to be honest.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good, though.
But think about it. It is what it is. They will say whatever they need to say for whoever's paying them, whether it be Big Pharma, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. This segment sponsored by Pfizer. So they are prostitutes. And that's why I call them that.
Now, quickly, your book. Tell us about your book and how are the sales going?
Well, Preserving Liberty is the book right here. Bold and Brave Solutions to Save America and Create Permanent Freedom. The book is based and focused on how to preserve liberty. It's not based on social issues. It's not based on any of that stuff. Maybe if I get a chance to do another book, I'll do Preserving Culture. But right now, Preserving Liberty is how do we keep the liberty that we already have in the United States and expand on it? I think that what has happened to Charlie Kirk has awakened millions upon millions of Charlie Kirks out there that perhaps maybe knew of him and didn't really follow him that deeply and closely, but they see the violence. They can see that these people are violent. They're not interested in political discourse. They're not interested in hearing anyone else's opinions. And in fact, because they're angry and out of power, they are lashing out. These people need to be, I would say, not just arrested, but I would say they need to be institutionalized. We need to open up the insane asylums once again, start funding mental health, and let's lock these people up and put them, pump them full of Thorazine and get them out of society. I mean, think of how radical this ideology is. You have something that is an extremely rare birth defect, right? Intersex, hermaphrodite. It is so rare. And they have been able to bastardize this very rare medical issue into a political ideology and an orientation. That takes chutzpah, if you know what that word means.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it does indeed. But not good chutzpah.
Not good.
Josh, not good stuff. Josh Bernstein, news anchor and political commentator, author of Preserving Liberty. If somebody wants to find out more about you or listen to your podcast, how do they do that?
7 days a week, I do a show. I always say I do it 7 days a week because the left doesn't take a day off from trying to destroy America. I don't take a day off from trying to defend it. So you can go to Substack, which is jbushow.substack.com, jbushow.substack.com. If you want a digital copy, a free digital copy for $5 a month, join my Substack and you will get a digital copy. Or you can go to Amazon and for around $20, you can get your hard copy as well.
Just beautiful. Thank you, Josh. This is
Anytime.
Today.